Barry Jackson has come out with a 4-part article, said article real weird, about Tua Tagovailoa. And this fourth one I found very interesting. So we're going to break it down. What is up, Finn fans? Raise your hand. How many people commented before they were watching the video? How many? Put them up. I could see you. You did. You did. You did. So I tried to title the video as accurate as I possibly can because the name of the article from Barry Jackson is Areas Where Tua Tagovailoa Measured Up to MVPs and Where He Didn't, and a Lingering Question. And that's kind of the biggest thing going into this season and the off season about Tua, his contract and this and that, which I'll make videos about, obviously, because it's very important if he gets a contract extension, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. But this is a 4-part series that he did, Barry Jackson. His other parts, then the first one is the pros and cons of a contract extension for Tua. His second one, which we talked about in the video, reflects some of Tua's strengths and shortcomings. And then the one before this is about Tua and whether to give him a contract or not. And that's from, media pundits. So I titled this video, if I'm remembering correctly, probably like Tua Tagovailoa, how does he stack up? How Tua Tagovailoa stacks up versus MVPs and where he lacks. I think, I don't know, but I know for a fact, a bunch of you guys probably commented before even watching the video, even hearing what Barry Jackson had to say, even hearing my response and my reaction to what here's where he stacks up. He doesn't. He sucks. He's the worst. Get rid of him. Flush him down the toilet. You know why? Because he's a turd. I can't stand him. Yippity-dee. That's how some work, and it makes me laugh. But anyway, we're going to get into this. Barry Jackson, great beat writer, great article maker. I haven't read any of this, so I'm going to give you my reactions to what he has to say, if I agree, I disagree, all that stuff. So, in December, when the Dolphins offense was rolling and Tua Tagovailoa was in the MVP discussion, he technically is. He's like second to bottom. He's in between Tyreek Hill and above Jalen Hurts, which I find interesting. ESPN flashed a graphic showing how his numbers compared with the 3 quarterbacks who have won the past 5 MVP awards. At the time, it was very favorable to Tua. His numbers were superior to MVPs in several key areas. After a disappointing end to an otherwise good season, we were curious how Tua's numbers stacked up against recent MVPs. The answer, in 3 often cited areas, they stacked up very well. In 3 other areas, not well enough. So again, just to give you guys a synopsis, because you're listening to a dyslexic read you something and you're probably like, I don't understand what the heck you just said. We're going to look at the most recent MVPs, see where Tua stacks up, the positives, the negatives, plain and simple. There you go. So if you average MVP seasons for Patrick Mahomes 2018, 2022, Aaron Rodgers 2020 and 2021, and Lamar Jackson 2019, here's the areas where Tua was essentially as good or better. Completion percentage. Those 3 quarterbacks completed 67.8% of their passes during their MVP season. Tua, 69.3. Passing yards per game, Jackson, Mahomes, and Rodgers, 273.6. Tua, 272 per game. Passing yards per attempt, those 3 MVPs average 8.1 and Tua 8.2. Best, besides the ability to improvise and create something out of nothing, here were the other 3 areas where Tua didn't measure up to the recent NFL MVP statisticals over the course of a season. Passing touchdowns, they had 2.6. Tua had 1.7. Passer rating, they had a 1. Those 3 have accumulated 112.8. Rodgers was 121.5 in 2022, finished with a 101.1, down from a 105.5 last season. That was probably partially by a product of throwing 4 interceptions, tied for 4th most in the league. He started getting that name back of Tua turned the ball over. Winning, Tua was 11-7 in regular season and playoffs, including the postseason. In their MVP seasons, Mahomes was 13-5 and 17-3, including the Super Bowl. Rodgers was 14-4 and 13-3, and Lamar Jackson was 13-3. So if you notice, kind of winning matters. Now, it isn't. This is the thing, right? You kind of have to look at these things in a certain way. When you look at losses, this is how I do wins and losses, because a lot of people will say, are wins and losses are quarterback stats? Kind of, right? Kind of are, because it depends on how they play. Like, to me, the loss to the Falcons, I don't put on Tua. Yes, he threw 2 stupid interceptions, but he also had 4 touchdowns and gave the defense the lead with less than 2 minutes in the game. To me, that's not on Tua why they lost that game, if you're picking up what I'm putting down. The loss to Buffalo, week 18 for the division, that's on Tua. He threw the interception to essentially steal the game, put us out of reach. Against the Kansas City Chiefs, that loss is on Tua. He lost the snap and could have had Cedric Wilson Jr. On a touchdown pass, missed the throw. Against the Eagles, the interception, regardless if it should have been PI or not, threw an interception. See what I'm saying? There are instances where the quarterback doesn't affect the loss, so the win and loss shouldn't be on them. But there's some instances where the game is affected by the quarterback, whether marching them down the field, helping them win, i.e. Tua versus the Ravens, the Chargers this year, the Browns, the Lions, not the Browns, the Lions, the Bears last year, you know what I'm saying? Where Tua helped them win those games. So there's that. But if you look at what Barry's talking about, Mahomes, Rodgers, and Jackson all had very good winning records, went deep into the playoffs, all that stuff, whereas Tua didn't. Tua kind of fell apart. Similar to Tua this year, Rodgers and Jackson each lost in their first playoff game of an MVP season, and neither played particularly well in those games. If you missed this in part 3 of our series, this is the Tua Tagovailoa 2023 statistical reality that will stick to him until it changes. Against opponents with winning records, Tua has 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and an 80.8 rating, and Miami was 1-6. He averaged 228 yards in those games. Against other teams, he had 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 110.8 rating. Miami was 10-1 in those games. He averaged 293 yards in those games. And you look at that, right? And a lot of people bring that up, and it's facts. This isn't an opinion. This is a cold, hard fact sitting there looking at you in the face. But when you look at it, it sucks because you got to beat the winning teams. Especially, and I talked about it all season. I talked about how we have that stigma of we can't beat winning teams, yada, yada. And I kept saying, we're taking care of business, but eventually we're going to need to beat those winning teams if you want to win the division and win in the playoffs. We couldn't, we didn't, we don't. If that makes any sense. But I will say this, he did take care of business, because if you look like Josh Allen's stats versus these losing teams, the Giants, the Broncos, they're not good. Same thing with Patrick Mahomes versus the Raiders you see what I'm saying? They're not as good because he does what he's supposed to, but we need him to go above and beyond what he's supposed to, if that makes any sense. The 2.5 second question. One of the widely discussed concerns with Tua is how he fares when he's not throwing quickly or in rhythm or is forced to improvise. Pro Football Focus has a metric showing how quarterbacks do when they have 2.5 seconds or more to throw. It's not the perfect statistic to measure how quarterbacks do when the play breaks down, because sometimes they can be products of offensive line giving the quarterback extended protection, but it does offer some insight. In Tua's case, he had an 87.6 passer rating in those 2.5 seconds or more instances, which was 14th among quarterbacks who started at least 10 games. The top 5, Brock Purdy with 111.6, Jackson, Prescott, CJ Stroud, and Russell Wilson. Tua's 203 passing attempts with that amount of time was 19th most in the NFL. He had 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, tied for the 4th most in the league, and took 23 sacks on those plays. By contrast, Tua had a 105.4 passer rating behind only Purdy and Justin Herbert, when he had less than 2.5 seconds to throw. He had 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and only 8 sacks when he got the ball off in less than 2.5 seconds. His 395 throws, which big disparity, in less than 2.5 seconds were the most in the league. 31 more than Trevor Lawrence, who was number 2. So the metric bar out there out what was clear to most who watched. When he's in rhythm and releases the ball quickly, he's usually very good. When he's not, he's an average quarterback or worse. 100%. Like, again, these are facts. These aren't an opinion. This is cold, hard facts looking at you in the face. For some reason, when Tua has too much time to throw the ball, he has brain farts. And we noticed it last year. I think it was like the 49ers game last year, where he wasn't getting pressured that much. He actually had time to sit back and kind of go through his motions, and he kept getting brain farts, and he kept missing throws and stuff like that. Whereas you get pressure on him and you force him to make a play in under 2.5 seconds, he is a precision passer. So it's like this whole enigma with him. It's like, why all of a sudden, if you have time, it's a problem? Now, you can equate it to, for most of his career, NFL career, he never had time. So he starts to get the jittery feet. He starts burping the baby. He doesn't know what to do, because you look at the offensive line. There was one instance against the Chiefs where they only sent two. They only sent two rushers. Austin Jackson had his guy blocked. He threw his guy to the ground, and out of to his peripheral, I guess he saw the guy fall, and he decided to take off running. It was the play where he missed Tyreek. I think it was on a 4th down or whatever. He didn't have to run. There was no one coming up the front. They sent two. So essentially, what Spagnuolo did was he just was like, I'm going to send to him to drop everyone back and have Tua beat us. Plain and simple, because we're so far ahead. I think that was after like their 4th field goal or something, and it was like 7 to like 20 something. But that's a problem. Now, here is the big question. And this is the question that we all want to know. The question is whether Tua's accuracy can ultimately overcome his struggles making something out of nothing, a skill that Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jackson possess because of their elusiveness and rushing skill. I will say this. It's not that he can't do it. It's just that he doesn't do it as much as Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson, because we've seen him do it. We've seen him do it against Baltimore. We've seen him do it a ton of time where he'll spin out and then make a play, but it is nowhere near as much as he should be doing it. So I agree with that. What are you doing if you're Tua? Marcus Spears says. You played a lot of football. I get worried when there's a glitch in the computer, when the picture is not turning up, how they imagine it being printed when the play is called and when the play starts and it breaks down. Where do you go after that? That has been my issue all season long. Miami Dolphin fans have been pissed off at me about it. They've told me, look at the numbers. Numbers can be skewed. This is what I'm saying. That's not what he said. When I look at it from the defensive standpoint, when I can get Tua to pull the ball down, when I can get him to stick to how this play was drawn up computer-wise, that's the only thing he's going to do successfully. The polar opposite is what Josh Allen was able to do, going beyond the X's and O's on the late drives. You need that in the playoffs to have success, and that's the ultimate issue with Tua. Can enough plays not break down? Can the protection hold up well enough where he can win a playoff game without the ad-lib magic skill? And that is where a great article, Barry, fantastic article, breaks it down perfectly, where Tua, stacks up against these MVPs in a few categories and is short on other ones, and then he's short on his improvisational skills, because that's where it's important. That's where I made the tweet, and I talked about Tua needs to kind of go back. If you watch his first 2 years, way more elusive. Watch the Cardinals game where he's running for yards. You look at the Falcons game where he's running for yards and he's making something out of nothing. He needs to go back to that. And I know every time I say that, people are like, then he's going to get a concussion. The reason he slowed up is because of his weight, yada, yada. I agree. He has to find some type of middle ground, because the way he plays is not going to sustain success. You can't put the best offensive line in front of him. It's just, injuries are going to happen. Plays are going to break down. You're going to face a defense that has an extremely good pass rush. You need to be able to improvise. The best quarterbacks improvise. Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, they don't improvise as in the fact of they're going to roll out and they're going to run and they're going to duck under sacks and stuff. But they're quick. They're quick with their reads. They're quick with their deciding, okay, I know that on my right, my number one receiver is going to run a 5-yard comeback. I know my number 2 receiver on that right side on the inside slot is going to run a skinny post 6. Like, they know these things, so they could drop back, look, boom, that's not there, boom. They're quick with the decision making. That's something he needs to work on this offseason. Because if he can't be that type of quarterback where he makes something out of nothing, he needs to figure out where he can overcome that lack in his game. And that's the difference, because you look at the greats, right? Let's say Tua's like, he's done. He likes that he's bulked up. He's going to get a little bit more leaner, but he's not going to be as light as he used to be. He likes being able to take the hits and stay in the pocket and whatever. He's never going to be as fast as he used to be. Pre-hip injury, go watch him. He was pretty elusive in college. That's where you need to then hone your skills, hone your focus on the Drew Brees. Like, he gets compared to Drew Brees so much. That's where you need to then hone what you can do on that Drew Brees style. Because Drew Brees, scrambled every once in a blue, but he was a very precision passer. He knew what he was looking for. He knew to look off guys, which Tua does well. Tua's very good at looking off guys, and we've seen him make the plays and that. Hone in on that. Focus on that. Make that your best. Fitzpatrick, make that your superpower right there, because you don't have the legs. Like we've seen Josh Allen against the Chiefs, where he ran, you thought he was getting out of bounds. He still kept his 2 feet in. He made a ridiculous, it's just that's something he'll never be. Then you need to hone on it. And that's where, and I'm going to make a contract video kind of talking about what I'm looking for and what I'd pay him. But that's where the question mark for me in giving a contract extension stems from. Because if he continues to get stuck, to me, it's another Ryan Tannehill situation where, he has horrible pocket presence. Well, he's getting better with the pocket presence. He has a horrible deep accuracy. Well, he's getting better with, and it's just like, you missed out. We missed out on Patrick Mahomes. We missed out on Josh Allen. We missed out so many quarterbacks we missed out on, hoping and praying that Ryan Tannehill got better. The difference is, at this point in Ryan Tannehill's career, he was nowhere near where Tua is right now. But Tua, he needs to speed it up. And it's unfair, but it's just the way the world works. He needs to speed it up because it's the NFL for a reason, not for long. And Mike McDaniel doesn't have forever. Got to win a playoff game. Gotta. And again, wins can and might not be a quarterback stat, but you need to be able to will your team to win at some points. And against the Bills, you're up 14-7. You had 3 offensive drives. You did nothing with them. That's a problem. You're facing, I understand it's cold weather, but your defense, who has no pass rush, is forcing the Chiefs to kick field goals. You got nothing together on offense except for a deep pass where Tyreek made something out of nothing. Baltimore, it was a back and forth. We forced them to punt. You can get nothing out of that. I understand Tyreek dropped the touchdown. Got to bounce back from that. You see what I'm saying? You're the quarterback. You're the team leader. You're the team captain. You got to do it. Can he do it? I don't know. I've seen him do it in September, October, November. Now it's about, can he do it in December? That's the biggest question. So, great article. Comment below. Let me know what you think about the article, about where Tua stacks up versus these MVPs, where he doesn't, and that lingering question. What's your take on the lingering question? And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to do, because it's February 1st now, so we got a little over a month before free agency starts, team needs tomorrow. So, and I think I'm going to go live either tomorrow night or Saturday night. I haven't decided yet, around 10 o'clock. But like usual, stay classy. If ends up.